Welcome to Called to Learn, Grace for the Journey, a podcast for adults who feel called to grow, even if they're unsure what that next step looks like. This space is for the parent, the working professional, ministry leader, or the person quietly wondering if learning and growth are still possible for their life. Hint, hint, it is. But maybe you thought about going back to school. Maybe you felt pulled towards deeper spiritual growth. Or maybe you just know there's more inside of you than what your current season seems to allow. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. This podcast exists to remind you that growth is not reserved for one season of life. It is a part of becoming who God created you to be. One of the most common things that I hear from adults is a simple sentence: I think I missed my chance. Life happens, career begins, families grow, responsibilities multiply, and somewhere along the way, learning starts to feel like something meant for younger versions of ourselves. Trust me, at 36 years old, being in college right now feels so awkward. But we'll get into the blessing part of it in a little later, either in this episode or a different one. But some people carry memories of school that damage their confidence. That is so me. I completely failed my last semester of my associate's degree and never thought about going back to finish it. I completely ran away from my high school. I was in a Vo-Tech, a highly recommended and studious high school, and I left it with months until graduation to go to the regular high school down the street. That is another story for another day. But I say that to say I have had some very poor memories of school that not only damaged my confidence, but it's damaged my life along the way. There may be someone listening now that feels intimidated by technology or even online learning. Starting with my husband. So we're just going to keep it real. He never took an online course before until starting the one that we are currently in together. And that transition for him in the beginning was a little rough, but he tackled it. And there are some that are just simply tired. Maybe you're just one of those people that are just tired and wondering how growth could possibly fit into your already full life. I'm a mom of 4 kids. I work a full-time job. I co-founded a nonprofit. I do ministry and missions work. Bruh, you can't tell me about a full schedule. So the desire to learn, if you're one of these people, it usually remains quiet. It remains dormant, or it's not there at all. Maybe it's gone, or just postponed at the moment. But over time, postponed dreams can actually start to feel like closed doors. My husband used to harp at the fact that I didn't finish my college career in my associate's degree. And then after I did do that, then he harped on continuing my education because he was already coming into our union with a bachelor's degree. He already did his 4 years of college back home. But for me, that door was closed. Hey, I'm working a good job. I'm making decent money. What in the world I got to go back and finish school for, But anywho, what if it isn't? What if these postponed dreams of ours were not closed doors? Now, here's something I come to believe deeply. Learning is not about proving your worth. It's about stewarding what God has already placed inside of you. Throughout scripture, preparation rarely happened in convenient seasons. If we go back to Moses learned leadership while tending to his sheep. And Paul spent years learning and growing before public ministry. Paul went through some stuff before even getting to where he was in ministry. And I liken my story to Paul a lot, and you'll probably hear me bring it up. He's one of my favorite characters in scripture, one of my favorite individuals, because growth often begins in ordinary, busy seasons. It doesn't happen necessarily in perfect ones when things are going the way we feel as though they should. No, it happens in the chaos. And sometimes the call to learn isn't about changing who you are, but it's about becoming more fully who you were created to be in the first place. Education can be one pathway, and discipleship can be another. But guess what? Both acts of obedience when we respond to growth with faith instead of fear. God says 365 times in his word, do not be afraid. Do not fear. And yet we still do. The only thing we should fear is him. But the fear of growth, the fear of leaning into our faith, the fear of being obedient, it's 2026. Let me say something that may shift how you see yourself. You are not behind in life. You are being invited into preparation. You came across this podcast because God wanted you to hear something. The years that you thought disqualified you may have actually been the years that prepared you. Those years that some of them I'd like to forget, and I have intentionally forgot. But if I'm honest with myself, the years that I thought I was disqualified are actually the years that built up so much character and resilience within me that prepared me to be able to carry what I do have on my plate now. Learning is not a sign that you failed early. Learning is evidence that you are still responding to God's invitation to grow. He is calling you. Growth is not about catching up. It's about answering the call to move forward. Now, if you're feeling the desire to grow but don't know where to begin, research actually gives us encouraging news. And that's another reason why I'm just so grateful that I did decide to go back to school, because my hunger to know more, my hunger to continue growing, my interest in reading books that I would never have touched, my love for audiobook, I'm gaining so much more clarity from the things that I have been learning. And through this research and through these studies, I'm learning that meaningful learning does not require endless hours every day. Even cognitive science shows that short, consistent learning sessions, even if it's just an hour a day, are far more effective than occasional long study sessions. This short podcast right here, you can learn a lot more in it in these 12 to 15 minutes that I have your ear than you do an hour or two scrolling through your social medias. But we're not going to go there today. Psychologists call this a spacing effect. When short, consistent learning sessions are more effective than your long study sessions. It's called the spacing effect. And it's been discovered that when learning is spread out over time, instead of crammed into long sessions, people retain information longer and understand it more deeply. In other words, our brains learn best through consistency. Each time you return to learning, your brain strengthens neural pathways. And over time, learning literally reshapes how you think and how you remember. Why do you think the saying, if you don't use it, you'll lose it, is a thing? If you don't use your brain and strengthen these neural pathways, they start to die off. They literally start to disintegrate, and you start to forget. You don't remember, or you have to rehearse or revisit what you're not understanding. And studies on deliberate practices such as these show that improvement happens through focused, intentional efforts done regularly. But listen, not perfectly. So progress doesn't come from intensity. It doesn't come from doing harder and doing more and doing it longer. No, it comes from a steady rhythm. So one focused hour, it reduces how much you're overwhelmed. It strengthens your confidence and it builds real momentum within your work. And I'm so thankful that that is the habit that I've gotten into, because that's literally what has been carrying me through the last 3 years of continuous education. So learning science now confirms that scripture has been right all along, and it's been teaching us these things all along. Luke 16:10, follow me there. It reminds us that one who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. Growth rarely begins with a dramatic change. It begins with faithful consistency. So start small and start now. Set aside one consistent hour each week or each day when it's possible, dedicated to learning, reading, studying, or something simple, such as exploring your next step. We have so much at our fingertips. Don't get lost in the chaos, but be consistent in your growth. Confidence does not come before action. It comes, or it grows, through your rhythms. Now, growth looks different in every season. For some of you, the next step may be returning to school and pursuing education in a structured way. But for others, it may be committing to a deeper discipleship and learning within community. Wherever you are, you don't have to grow alone. And I'd love to help you discern what that next step looks like. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. And it is not too late to answer the call to learn. Until next time, keep growing. Follow me on social so that you can definitely stay up to date. Join me in community. I have several that may fit your liking or the season that you are in right now. And of course, stay tuned for more. I have a lot more in store for this channel as well as my other, Leading with Grace. Follow both of them. And be sure to follow on all socials so that you're always up to date.